So now, it's all clear. In a major development, the United States, after days of speculation, has officially entered the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran by launching airstrikes on Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities. And trust me, no other country in this entire world can do what the U.S. has done this time. So let's discuss in simpler terms all the details of these strikes and how this will affect the Middle East and the United States of America. Let's begin. Well, on the night of June 21st, U.S. military forces bombed 3 Iranian nuclear sites. First is Fordow, near the city of Guam, a deep underground uranium enrichment site. Second is Natanz, Iran's largest nuclear facility. And third is Isfahan, believed to hold near-weapons-grade uranium stockpiles. The strikes involved advanced stealth bombers, the B-2 Spirit, and submarine-launched Tomahawk missiles. President Donald Trump claimed that these sites were completely and totally obliterated. These sites are central to Iran's uranium enrichment program, which Western intelligence claims is dangerously close to developing a nuclear weapon. Now, I know you guys may be thinking that President Trump was asking for 2 weeks' time to discuss whether the U.S. should get directly involved in this or not. And well, to be very honest, President Trump and all the other staff who needed to take this decision, like Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and some others, did indeed need some time to discuss all the possibilities before jumping into this war. Because we all know a war is always a challenge, no matter how big or small it is. You need to do a lot of planning. How you're going to convince other world leaders for your strike. Because no matter how much power you hold, you need to explain your actions when you're going to do something very big. But the situation had become so tense for Israel that it was a do-or-die situation for them. It was a decision taken under pressure, and there was no other option. Now, when this attack on Iran was happening, President Trump and some of the higher-ranking officials were present in the Situation Room, watching all the activities live. They watched every aspect of the operation, how US B-2 bombers entered Iranian airspace, how the bombs were dropped, and what destruction they caused. Later, President Trump, in a televised address, confirmed the strikes, stating, quote, "Iran's nuclear capabilities have been totally obliterated."
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
Now, this is a very epic moment because this has marked the first time since the 1979 revolution that the U.S. has bombed nuclear sites inside Iran. President Trump says the U.S. Air Force B-2 bombers were used in the strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. The whole world knows the B-2 Spirit is the U.S. Air Force's top-of-the-line bomber. It has a payload of 40,000 pounds and an unlimited range with aerial refueling. The GBU-57AB massive ordnance. Penetrator bombs, also known as bunker buster bombs, were used to strike the Iranian nuclear facilities, and only the U.S. has the capability to deploy these bombs. Even if the U.S. gave these bombs to Israel, they wouldn't be able to use them without America, because it's impossible to carry these U.S. bombs with any ordinary warplane. A single GBU bomb can weigh 30,000 pounds with 6,000 pounds of explosives. It was created to break through thick concrete or rock and destroy hidden or heavily protected weapons like nuclear or chemical weapons that enemies might store deep underground. So the B-2 is the only aircraft in the U.S. inventory, or in the world, that can carry the GBU-57AB. Now, this mission is something that reminds the world why the U.S. is the only superpower in this world. Let me explain the details of this mission. The mission, Operation Midnight Hammer, began at the Whiteman Air Force Base, located in Missouri, United States. From here, B-2 Spirit stealth bombers took off. The bombers departed in the early hours of June 21st, Saturday, just after midnight. For the entire journey, so dozens of tanker aircraft were positioned at multiple points over the North Atlantic Ocean to refuel the bombers mid-air. This refueling process ensured the bombers could reach their destination without landing anywhere. After crossing the Atlantic, around 5 p.m. U.S. time, the bombers reached the CENTCOM region in the Middle East in the evening of June 21st. Here, they joined a full support package, which likely included electronic warfare aircraft and surveillance planes to assist the mission. At the same time, U.S. Navy ships in the Arabian Sea and the Gulf region launched their own support operations, creating pressure from the sea. Then came the most critical moment, the actual airstrike on Iranian targets. The bombers crossed into Iranian airspace, and between 6:40 and 7 p.m., they carried out their precision bombing. This 20-minute window was carefully chosen for surprise and effectiveness, allowing the bombers to strike their targets with speed and accuracy. As soon as the strike was completed, the bombers exited Iranian airspace by 7:30 p.m. U.S. time. After leaving Iran, they again met aerial tankers to refuel on their way back to the United States. Finally, the B-2 bombers completed their long mission by safely returning to Whiteman Air Force Base on June 22nd, Sunday, completing a complex, global round-trip mission in less than 2 days. Well, think about it. These bombers almost covered half of the Earth to complete this mission. No country in this world has this kind of capability. The United States also employed a strategic deception tactic. Multiple bomber aircraft were deployed as decoys to mislead Iranian defense systems. Intelligence reports suggest that Iran was receiving support from Russia and China, who were helping track potential U.S. bomber routes. Anticipating this, the U.S. executed a clever maneuver. Decoy bombers were sent in from the west, drawing attention and defensive focus, while the real strike force, stealth B-2 bombers, approached. Undetected from the east, the ruse worked flawlessly. Iran's air defenses were effectively misdirected, allowing the bombing mission to succeed without a single American aircraft being shot down. If even a single B-2 bomber had been shot down, it would have been a huge blow to the U.S.'s reputation. Each bomber is worth around $2.1 billion, and the U.S. boasts that these planes are invisible to any radar. The U.S. also launched 30 Tomahawk missiles by submarine, a long-range, subsonic cruise missile developed by the U.S. Navy for precision strikes. The attack was a powerful display of U.S. military might. The whole world's militaries are just shocked that this kind of attack could even happen. This is also a clear message for China, that if the U.S. wants to come, then it will come, no matter how many obstacles are present in front of it. Soon after the attack, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a brief statement praising President Trump for his bold move to strike Iran's nuclear sites. Netanyahu highlighted that America's action was unprecedented and stood alone in its effectiveness.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength.
According to Netanyahu, strength fosters peace, while weakness invites danger. He emphasized that the U.S.'s bold action could now pave the way for peace in the region. In closing, Netanyahu expressed his gratitude to President Trump and the American people on behalf of Israel, reaffirming that their alliance was unshakable. In response, Iran has made official statements vowing to target the U.S. directly. There are growing concerns that Iran's proxy forces in Yemen and Lebanon might also get involved, escalating the situation. The global spotlight is now fixed on the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway through which about 25% of the world's oil passes. Iran possesses the naval power to block this strategic route, which could lead to a worldwide oil crisis. But in that case, the whole world may engage with Iran, maybe militarily also, to remove the blockage. This attack represents a major breach of Iran's sovereignty. Israel had already carried out airstrikes, and now the U.S. has followed suit. How Iran will retaliate remains uncertain. While the U.S. claims it doesn't want to escalate tensions further, Iran may speed up its nuclear program. If Iran refrains from responding, it risks losing both international support and domestic credibility. Now, one thing must be coming to everyone's mind. Is Iran's nuclear program finished? Well, the answer is no. Maybe it's delayed for another couple of years, but it's not finished. Trump has asserted that the Fordow facility has been completely destroyed. However, Fordow is a heavily fortified underground complex, located 90 meters beneath a mountain. The GBU-57 bunker buster bombs used to strike Iran's nuclear facilities can penetrate up to 60 meters of reinforced earth. While significant damage was likely inflicted, Iran state media reports that they had anticipated the attack and moved key personnel and equipment ahead of time, which again cannot be confirmed. Nobody knows how much reality is in that claim that Iran moved key personnel and equipment ahead of time. Iran claims that the bombs only impacted the entrance of the facility and did not reach the critical intersections. There are two possible explanations. First, the bombs may have failed to hit the most vital areas. Or second, the U.S. might have deployed multiple bunker busters, one to create a crater and then a second bomb dropped into the same hole to go even deeper. If the strikes were that precise, it's possible the U.S. succeeded. But whether this occurred or not remains unclear. Saudi Arabia's nuclear regulator says no radioactive traces have been detected in the environment of Saudi Arabia or other Gulf states following the U.S. strikes. Now, slowly, other world leaders will also react to the U.S. strikes. And then we will get to know what the world opinion is on these U.S. moves. Right now, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned this attack, saying this is a dangerous escalation in a region already on the edge and a direct threat to international peace and security. Iran's foreign ministry says the U.S. has begun a dangerous war against Iran and is requesting an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council to condemn the U.S. strikes. They have even again started firing missiles toward Israel. So this conflict is not going to stop here. Now that the U.S. has directly involved itself in this conflict against Iran, this may be the beginning of World War III, because all the military developments happening in the world right now are not looking good. Domestically in the U.S., this move has sparked a legal and political storm. Some ministers and government officials have praised President Trump's decision to strike Iran with the heaviest force, while some U.S. lawmakers, particularly progressives, argue that Congress should have authorized the military action. There are calls for a war powers resolution, which limits the president's ability to take military action without congressional approval. This raises constitutional questions within the U.S. and could influence the 2026 midterm election, because Iran could retaliate by attacking U.S. or Israeli targets directly, or through proxies like Hezbollah, the Houthis, or Shia militias in Iraq and Syria. This risks widespread instability and may mean the death of a lot of U.S. soldiers. And the biggest thing is that nobody really knows how close Iran is to developing a nuclear bomb, or maybe they already have one. In geopolitics, no event is isolated. Today's headlines shape tomorrow's world order. The U.S. entering a direct war with Iran could be a turning point for the Middle East and for global peace. So what do you think about this situation? Do you think this is the beginning of World War III? Or will the U.S. and Israel eventually get their plans done in the Middle East? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Hope you all have a wonderful day.